Boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is on a juicy topic, okay? It's a juicy topic. Like literally, if there's one topic I could make a video on, it would probably be this. We're gonna get into that in just a moment. First of all, cheers for showing up. My name is Jake. I'm your host. This is a dog that likes to be pet. This is Larceny. It is a bourbon that I thought was gonna be a little bit more chill than it is. It's got a little bit of spice to it, more so than I expected, but it is fitting because today's video is probably going to be a little bit spicy, okay? Now, here's the disclaimer I have to give you, okay? This is going to be a bit of a conversation if you're new to the channel, which is everyone, because at the time of filming this, we've got 69 subscribers. Our video is going to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say long, but long-ish form podcast style where we just have a conversation, right? This is a chill place for us to come, learn. You can ask questions down in the comments. We'll answer you, all kinds of stuff like that, right? So it's a little bit of a different real estate channel. To properly set up this video, which is going to be on buying land to shoot and build a house on and hunt and have chickens, that thing, I have to give you a little bit of background, which is, this is not a shameless plug, but it kind of sort of is. So 1911 Syndicate, my business, right? We help people buy and sell real estate, right? Very, very simple, mostly residential. And we have a very niche clientele. That clientele is largely inside of the military, law enforcement, shooters, hunters, outdoorsmen, preppers sometimes, which, you know, you might have detected the eye roll there a little bit. And we get some interesting characters. Now, because of the nature of the other content that I put out, which is related to, you know, firearms and training and preparedness, things like that, we have a lot of people that reach out to us. And a very common thing that hits our 1911 Syndicate inbox is, hey guys, big fan of the channel. I'm looking to buy land where I can build a home, I can set up a range and shoot on my own property. I can, those are the essentials. That's what always hits our inbox. And then the wild cards are things like, I want to also be able to hunt on my land. I don't want anyone to tell me what I can do because I want to grow my own food and I want to have horses and goats and God knows what other animals. And they just want to have this ultimate freedom lifestyle. And look, emotionally, I'm on board with you, right? Like, I support your dream. I think that's a great idea. The problem with it is that I work in the real estate business and I know the likelihood of you actually achieving this are very, very, very small, okay? So this video is essentially going to be a breakdown on not why it's impossible to do that, but for why most of you this is not going to be a good option, okay? So let's delve in just a tad. Here's the first thing to understand. And for those of you who are like, does he have notes on set? Yes, I do. It's just what I do. It's what I've done for a long time as I've done speaking and things like that. So we, as a company, 1911 Syndicate, we can help you with this dream. But what you need to understand is that we are going to be pretty rigid with you, okay? And that could be misconstrued as like we are being rude or short. That's not the intention. But what you have to understand is, hey, based on your background and experience with something, that's going to kind of dictate what your attitude is towards it. So what I can tell you is that, hey, look, 99 out of 100 requests that are sent to us for this dream, the person's completely off their rocker. Like they're living in fantasy land, okay? And I'm going to break down why that is the case. Typically, it goes something like this. You're having bourbon, as I also partake in. And it was late at night, and it was midnight, and you were watching, I don't know, Bear Grylls or some shit, and you're like, well, that looks like that would be a, you know, fun way to live life. And then so you just hit up the 1911 Syndicate, and I wake up to a 7 a.m. email saying like, I want to, you know, hunt and slay elk and shoot and have an awesome house on my land that I'm going to buy. And then we have to bring you back down to reality, okay? Now, here's your considerations. The first and foremost, and this is the most critical thing that I need all of you watching this, and I'm selfishly making this video because we will send this video to people that hit us up about this request. The first thing that I need you to understand is that financing dictates everything. If you have enough money, you can do pretty much whatever you want. I can make pretty much any dream that you have come true if you have enough money, okay? But money is the root of all of your either good or bad news with this. Virtually all of it, I should say. So here's some considerations. Have you done any homework on how much this project's going to cost? So if you're in Pennsylvania, let's say, right, and you hit us up and you go, hey, I live around Philly and I'm looking to buy some land in the wherever that I can go live and shoot and yada, 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 right? Well, have you done any homework? Because before you send us, or any agent for that matter, a message about this, you should do a basic level of due diligence, right? Jump on Zillow. We will jump down the Zillow rabbit hole in another video so that you guys understand what trash it is, but jump on some sites and just go, well, how much is land going for? How much would 10 acres cost me, right? Do a basic level of due diligence. Here's the biggest thing, okay? If you go, I want to buy land to build on, okay, aka implying this is not a pre-existing home, you probably are not going to be able to get that land purchase financed because essentially your project's going to come in some stages. Stage number one is going to be acquiring the land, okay? And obviously that's going to be acreage. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can buy land, right? You could do a lot loan. And by the way, I'm in Utah. This may vary based on different areas. I'm kind of giving you a broad strokes perspective of this. Check into your local areas or hit us up and we can help you guys out, right? So you could do a lot loan, for example. You would do a lot loan on something if you said, hey, look, I'm buying this. I don't intend to build on it really anytime soon, probably for the next couple years, but I want to go ahead and buy the land. That way, you know, a few years from now when I'm hitting retirement or whatever, I can build on it. Cool. You could do a lot loan, right? But now, of course, you have your existing rent, mortgage payment, whatever it is, and now that you're also paying on this piece of land. If it is a recreationally zoned piece of land, right? This is not a residential piece of land. This is genuine hunting land, camping land, place where you can go shoot. It's recreational land. Well, you're going to have a big issue in the form of you're really not going to be able to finance that. That's going to be one of your problems, but you're really not going to be able to finance that. So if you go, hey, I want to buy this recreational land spot or just buy this plot of land and then I'm going to build on it one day. Look, you have to understand, chances are you're not going to be able to finance that. Most traditional banks are not going to say, okay, you got this hunting property you want to buy? Great, let's give you a loan on it. Well, they're not going to do that. They're just going to say your best bet's going to be going to local credit unions or something like that, but chances are you will not be able to finance that, so you're going to have to pay cash. This is the first honest conversation that we have to have between us, which is, well, how much cash do you have? Like, what is your financial position? Are you sitting on, let's just say it's going to cost you, I don't know, a couple $100,000 to go acquire this 30 acres that you're going to shoot on? Do you have 200 grand in the bank? Or do you have a plan to win the lottery? Like, what exactly is going to happen here? For most of us as average Americans, you're not sitting on that kind of cash reserves for a recreational project like that, okay? So let's just say that you do acquire the land and then you're like, we're gonna build a house on it. Okay, great. Well, now we're talking about construction loans. And guys, I'm gonna hit you with a lot here because I need you to understand how difficult what you're trying to do is. So next step, right? You get the land, let's say, right? You paid cash for it and now you want to build on it. Great. So now you're going to need to do a construction loan. That you're probably also going to wind up working with a local bank, smaller institution, credit union, something like that. Most of your bigger banks aren't really going to be fucking with construction loans, okay? So here's the deal. Here's how this is going to work. So there's going to be a lot involved because you're building a custom home. So first things first, when you're acquiring the land, well, you're going to need to do a few different things, right? Because if you're going to get a construction loan from day one, because you're planning on buying land and building relatively short term, let's say in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to want to do a construction loan, chances are, instead of a lot loan, which would be a longer term strategy, or you can pay cash for the land. Regardless, if you're going to do a construction loan, hey, look, you're going to need to do stuff to make sure that you can even build on this property. So here's some of the things you need to be thinking about. Do I need to get a land surveyor out here to even figure out where the property lines are? Do I need them based on different regions? Like here in Utah, for example, we're in the mountains. So do we need to be doing soil tests, different things to test how stable this lot is so that we don't start building a house and they're like, oh yeah, dude, this thing's like basically the earth is sliding underneath you. That has happened to me on a lot before, right? When a geological survey guy goes, if this was the last lot available on planet Earth, I would not buy it. That's a pretty good sign you don't want to buy that piece of land. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure that the land is stable. You're also going to have to get architects involved because you're going to figure out, well, what is the house that we're building? Well, cool, that's going to be architect territory. And then based on that, he's going to go, cool, here's your home plans, right? Here's your blueprints. Then you go, great, now I got to go find a builder. Architect, builder, probably going to be separate people. They could be the same because you might have a builder that also has the architect side, but hey, look, you get in the picture, this gets pretty complicated. Now, let's just say you get to the point where we've designed the house. We're like, this is the house that we're going to put on the land. We might have to excavate the land because we might have to make it a little bit more stable if it's not perfectly flat or something like that. Now we're actually going to close on this project. And so for the next 9 months while I live in my apartment, they're going to be building this custom home on this piece of land that I'm going to go live on. Well, cool. Here's the problem with that. So now you've got your rent or your existing mortgage, and now you also have a construction loan that you're paying on. Chances are, while that thing's under construction, it's kind of the worst deal ever, actually. Basically, you just pay the interest-only portion of the land. Now, I know finance people might get in and dispute, oh, I know this program. Look, I'm speaking in broad strokes here, guys. Based on my experience, what I know, I get it. There's lots of nuance. We can't be expected to know every single detail about every single thing in the entire industry. But, hey, now I'm paying the interest-only portion of this construction loan while I've got my $1,500 a month mortgage. And the bummer is that construction loan's probably at a higher interest rate than your like 2.8 or whatever you can go get right now. So this is now getting just costly from a monthly output perspective because essentially I got two mortgages, right? And one of them's at a higher interest rate. Like this is starting to get pretty complicated. So do you even have the monthly cash flow to float something like that? I mean, for a lot of us, the answer is going to be no. Like I can't go for 6 to 9 months paying two different mortgages, right? That just doesn't work for me. So it gets pretty expensive. Well, but Jake, maybe I can pull that off. Okay, cool. Well, let's kick around a couple other things, right? How much is the range going to cost? How much is it going to cost to go build a range on your facility? You think you can finance that? No, right? So we have to get excavators out and then, range setup costs, all that kind of stuff. We'll get into this one in a second, but like, cool. How's that much going to cost? So, point being to this is not a project that you're going to find easy financing for. There's no like real blueprint of like, here you go, this is easy. I talk to people all the time about this and mortgage guys are always like, dude, I don't know, man. We don't even touch that kind of stuff. It's difficult. Point number 2, that was all point number 1 on why this is not a great idea. Point number 2 on why it's not a great idea. Let's talk about something called zoning, right? So in a planning and zoning department, which every city or county is going to have, there's going to be different rules. So most residentially zoned properties are not just going to allow you to go shoot out on your property because you might have neighbors, or it's simply not zoned to be able to do that. What if there's an HOA or a POA, HOA, Homeowners Association, POA, Property Owners Association, typically a little bit less invasive. Look, if there's an HOA or a POA on your land where you're going to build a house and you're going to shoot, you really need to forget about shooting, right? And frankly, in a lot of these off-grid kind of places, at least out here, they will have something to that effect, an HOA to that effect, that's not invasive, but largely what they're doing is maintaining the roads in the winter, right? So, but again, you do have some degree of a governing body of property owners, right, that does kind of oversee what happens on this land. So you need to look into that. You need to be looking into your CC&Rs for this land. Community covenants and conditions, like, it's this long list of shit when you move into a place with an HOA. So let's just say it's residentially zoned, therefore shooting on that's going to be very difficult. What if you have neighbors, right? What if you just piss off one of your neighbors and they start submitting noise complaints? You got a problem, right? Because you moved on this thing because you wanted to shoot it. Well, now you got a problem with the city. Okay, let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's say you buy a piece of land that is recreationally zoned. Okay, cool. Well, now it's not zoned for you to build a house on it. So you might be able to shoot on it, might be able to hunt on it. You got to look into that, how that would work with tags and everything. But now you might not be able to build on it unless you get it rezoned with the city, planning and zoning department. So whether you buy residential and you want to shoot on it, it gets complicated, right? Because it's not zoned. We got neighbors that might be complaining. Probably going to need a lot of acreage, if I'm being honest, to be able to shoot on my property and not have everyone get pissed off about it. Or I could buy recreationally and then have to get it rezoned residentially to be able to live on it, right? So you're starting to understand there is some complexity to this bad boy. Not to mention, guys, I mean, just think about it, especially if you're talking about hunting on this land where you live, you gotta be talking about some pretty serious acreage if you're talking about hunting deer and shit like that on your land. Like, you can't hunt on an acre. Like, sorry, it just doesn't work that way. Point number 3, access to resources. This is a big one. So if you thought this was an uplifting video thus far, wait till we hit this one. But don't worry, there's more bad news after this. So access to resources, what do I mean by that? So if you're going to live there, obviously you're going to need things. You're going to need things like water and gas and power. And you might need internet, cable, different sewer, different things like this. A lot of these more off-grid type places that obviously are more remote areas, a lot of that stuff's not going to exist, which means the burden is now on you to get this set up. Well, that can be expensive. And again, depending on how your financing is or is not working, you're probably not going to be able to finance a water connection fee of $10,000 hypothetically. Or what if you need to drill a well? Okay, cool. The last well we looked into out here was going to be about 20 no, closer to 30. So call it maybe 25 on a good day, right? So it just depends. How deep do we need to go? What kind of permits do we need for that? Are you starting to get the picture here, guys? So do you have access to these things? Gas, water, power, yada, yada, yada. Internet, cable. What if you work from home? All that good stuff. Here's another one. What about road access? A lot of these areas, it's just not great access. So what if you need to start constructing roads now? Well, I can tell you that's not cheap. Frankly, honestly, never priced out how much it is to build a road to get to a property because I don't entertain this rabbit hole with people very often. But if you need to get road access to a property, that's not going to be cheap. Point number 4, does your life even allow for this plan? AKA, hey, look, if you're employed, which if you're hitting us up about buying land, please be employed. That would be point number 1. Have a job, or if you're retired, a lot of money. But does your lifestyle allow for it? AKA, do you have a job that you have to go to? Are you a police officer, for example, that you work in this area, but you want to do this live off grid fantasy and you're like, yo, that's a hour outside of the town or little city that you live in. Can you do that? Like does your lifestyle allow for you to have this sort of off-grid hunting, shooting on your property lifestyle? And you got to be honest with yourself about that, okay? You really do. Last point here is going to be, if you're a first-time buyer, please do not message us about this because we simply cannot take this seriously. If you're like, look, I live in an apartment or I live with my parents, and I'm not saying that to like beat you guys up on this, but if you have never owned a property before, you have to stop shooting for the stars like this and you have to come back down to planet Earth. And a point that I make to people all the time, if you've never bought a place before, your job on house number 1 is to simply get in the game. Get something, get anything, right? But stop shooting for the stars. You try to make it so complicated on house number 1 sometimes that you wind up f***ing yourself out of even getting a house, right? So start basic, just get something. Get something that's within your budget. Get a normal mortgage, right? Get a pre-approval done and go get a house, right? That is your goal as a first-time home buyer, not to go full fucking fantasy on us. 2 more points. These are, kind of secondary points. If you hit us up about this, and I'm speaking unique to me, but again, I'm sure there's other people that deal with this as agents as well. If you hit us up about this and you're like, I'm serious, I want to do this, I'm ready to rock, we're going to ask you for verification of funds. If you're like, hey, let's start, let's get the land locked down, I got $100,000 for it, cool. Trust but verify, right? I think that's like a Reagan quote. I trust you, but I'm going to verify that you're serious, right? So we are going to ask for verification of funds. We're going to need a bank statement. We're going to need something to show me that, yeah, you got $100,000 in the bank that we could go buy land with, right? Until we see that, there's just really nothing that we can do, okay? It's kind of like shopping for a house before you have a pre-approval. There's nothing I can help you with because there's no point to it. There's no point in looking for a house because we can't make an offer on one because you haven't gotten your financing dialed in. And then my last point is a little bit of positivity, okay, a little bit of ray of sunshine. I've known one person who has done this up in Montana, and it's actually where I used to go train my 4-legged friend there. And this guy lived full off-grid. I mean, I stayed at his house for a few days training dogs, and I mean, I drank from a stream, and I pissed and shit wherever I wanted to because there was no toilet. They had no power. If you wanted to shower, you had to hook up the little solar shower to a car battery. And I mean, legitimate off-grid, okay? So it can be done. Now here's the dark side of that story. You know how long they lasted on that property? Less than a year, because the property burned to the f***ing ground because it's in the middle of nowhere. And when wildfires came through, the fire departments were like, yeah, like, sorry, we're going to be more focused on the town than this one house that's out in the middle of nowhere that's off-grid. So the thing burned down, right? So it's kind of a dark end to the positive story there. So guys, please understand when I'm telling you this, It's not that you can't do this, but the level of due diligence and complexity with this plan that you seek is enormous. And if you hit us up to go down this rabbit hole with you, we are going to be very direct with you about what is not a possibility with you, okay? So don't think that we're trying to be jerks, because we're really not, okay? And I know some of you will see this video who have hit us up, and that's why you're watching this video in the first place. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I'm trying to get you from concept in your head that you then emailed us about to, well, here's the reality of the situation. It's very expensive and it can be very complex. Well, it's definitely going to be very complex, and it's probably going to be very expensive, right? So guys, that's the lesson of the day. A little bit of a bummer. I know, it's just how these things go. Sometimes I'd consider myself a somewhat optimistic person, but sometimes you just slap them with the truth, right? So if you guys need help that watch this video, 1911syndicate.com, that's our real estate business. And if you're here and you get some value, enjoy some of this kind of a different approach to a real estate channel, you can subscribe, you can leave comments. We do read the comments, as we do on both of our channels, and we try to get back to people as best we can. So thanks for watching. Hope everyone's well. Cheers.